Hello, this is our flip learning video on ideal mental health and how we measure it. It's for section 3, our psychological problems topic. So we've talked so far about using a mental health continuum to measure ideal mental health. The problem is, because mental health is so subjective, it's all based on the individual person's viewpoint, that sometimes it can be difficult to do. What might be poor mental health for one person might be slightly different for another person. So we need to have a look at an idea from Mary Jahoda. She came forward in the 1950s with a list of criteria that she said should be should be seen in people with ideal mental health. Now this kind of suggests that there is a normal mental health and therefore anything else is abnormal, which does cause us problems, but it does give us a list of criteria that we can have a look at if we're trying to decide if somebody has good or poor mental health. So the first thing that Jahoda said we would have if we had good mental health was a high self-esteem. This isn't kind of feeling overly confident about yourself, but it's just understanding that you have value, you have worth, and that you are good at some things. You don't have to be good at everything, and you don't have to believe that you're good at everything, but just understand that you have value. The next thing Jahoda said we need, and this is one that can sometimes be a little bit difficult to get your head around, is this idea of personal growth and self-actualisation. Now, according to Maslow, who put together this hierarchy of needs diagram that you can see, there are certain criteria we need to move through to move on to the next level of our development. So you can see at the bottom there's very physiological needs like food and water. Then as we move up, we go through things that keep us safe like a house and security. Then we move up through our family, the self-esteem we've just talked about. Right at the top of the pyramid, and it depends on making sure you've got all of the other things below it, is this idea of self-actualisation. This is the idea that we can become the best possible person that we can be. Now obviously that will be different for everybody, but the idea is that we need to be striving towards that and doing things in our lives that will bring us to this self-actualisation. Jahoda said we also need to have good integration. Now this is the idea that we can take that high self-esteem and we can take this personal growth and we can use it to deal with very stressful situations. Everybody gets stressed sometimes, and it's not the stress that will make us ill, it's the way that we deal with it. So if we have high self-esteem and we know we can manage these situations and we want to get through them, we'll manage them perfectly well. Jahoda said we also need a level of autonomy. We need to be able to manage on our own. Now this is not to say that we don't ever need family and friends, we do. But if we're in a situation where we might find ourselves on our own, we can deal with it, we can figure it out, and we can manage that situation by ourselves. We also need to have an accurate perception of reality, and you can see how this would fit quite well with diagnosing some mental illnesses. If we see reality as everyone else sees it, as it actually is, then we can cope with that situation and work in that reality. If our perception of reality is slightly distorted, we're seeing things that are not really there, or hearing things that are not really there, or listening to people and understanding their words, perhaps they're not meant, then that's going to cause us problems in our everyday life. The last thing that Jahoda said we needed was a mastery of our environment. This is the idea that whatever the environment throws at us, whether the situation changes or we find ourselves somewhere that we didn't expect to be, perhaps we've missed a train and we're lost, that we can still manage that situation. So we have some mastery over going and finding information, how to cope with those difficult situations, what do we do next, where do we go, and that is part of having this ideal mental health. So if situations change, we can still cope and we can manage with those situations. Now, as you can see, this is a very different way of measuring mental health compared to that mental health continuum. What I want you to think about and what I want you to jot down is just some ideas about how these are different, if there's one that you think would be easier to use than the other, or if perhaps there might be some problems that might crop up if we used one and not the other.